Two of my conversation with Chris. We're putting it out unbeknownst to us in segments. I guess this is like Netflix or something, you know, when they drip out the content. Here we go. Oh, and here he is. Fantastic. So this is part two. If you want to check out part one, I'm going to dive back into all things sleep. What else would we be discussing over here but sleep? Okay, and he's joining in. All right.
Well,
And can you see me
hello.
this time?
I cannot see you this time. I don't,
Oh,
I
still?
don't know
Oh my
what's going
God.
on.
Oh,
May,
geez. Okay. Well, it's like a phone call for you.
yes, yeah, yeah. I just have to be careful. Like, can't be picking my nose or anything.
Yes.
My first thought was, is she so good at her job she just fell asleep while in a monologue?
Do you know the amount of times I get sent that meme? I don't know if anyone's seen this meme. I'm sure you have over the years. That woman on the subway reading like how to sleep and she's out like a light. I get sent that meme all the time. Oh my gosh. Yes.
It, all right, so you were talking about one, how sleep is a skill, kind of overall concept that probably didn't apply back
Back in the
in the
day.
ages when we were reading a book by firelight as like the end of a day,
Exactly.
usually of an exhausting day of
Correct.
lots of labor, and all of that's gone away. And then that some people have probably gone out there and looked for top 10 ways to fall asleep, and I think that's where we got cut off.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you for that. It was a great synopsis. So from that place, sleep being a skill. One of the things I think is really empowering from that stance for people is it kind of helps wash away any sense of morality or aptitude or standing in a place of, well, I'm a good sleeper or I'm a bad sleeper, right? So some of these kind of false narratives or labels that we can get into, and especially, unfortunately, for many people, into the insomniac label, where despite that being a descriptor of some of the symptoms that someone might be experiencing, sometimes it can be taken on as an identity. And so we're looking to disrupt that a bit and instead start at the beginning, sort of sleep 101, and what does it take, sort of from an inquiry, to improve upon your sleep results. So for the people listening, no matter if you are someone that's dealing with acute sleep situation, certain times where for most of us, we might experience a period when our sleep really is more troublesome, to say the least, than
Mm.
other times. But so if you're dealing with maybe acute insomnia, or if you're someone that's sleeping and yet you're interested in optimizing, or anywhere in between, I'm confident that we can help support people in up leveling their results, no matter where you might fall. Now, there might be different approaches for those two different groups, but it's important to know that you can improve.
Okay, so I posted the title of your episode is Sleep Like a Champion, Optimize Your Sleep to Boost Performance, Health, and Longevity with Mollie Eastman. I posted the link to the YouTube video that's directly to your episode. I'll post a link later to kind of the episodes in general. You mentioned poker players. It's probably often to give to help people understand how good you are at what you do or where they might fit in to deal with some of the extremes, right? Poker players, I have to imagine, are some of the extremes that you deal with. Can you talk about that? It'd be great if you could name, well, I don't even know any poker players, so you could name them and I'm like, that sounds like a guy who probably plays poker. But talk about like the struggles they have and what you can do to address those type of
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm glad you asked that because they are a great example for us to stand in, to look to. You can always learn from the extremes, but also, I think, to potentially find ourselves in some of their unique struggles. And what I mean by
Mm.
that is that when we think about poker players, traditionally, for the most part, if we're talking about live play, they're often in casinos designed on purpose to confuse the circadian rhythm. How is
Mm.
that the case? They're in an environment with no windows, tons of blue light and excitatory stimulus, often set up in a way to provide a lot of maybe dopamine hits or excitement, the ups and the downs, kind of an addictive, kind of quality to the environment. Alcohol, different types of foods, etc. All of these things set up to confuse the timing of our body no clocks, all of that is gone. And so you are left in often a confused sort of state. And that's often by design so that you can lose hours out of your day and night and then, indulge in what's available there. Now, that's pertinent to the rest of us because we do now live in post, the Industrial Revolution, when we started to see people going more indoors, the advent of electric lights, and the ability for a 24-hour lifestyle. This suddenly promoted the ability for all of us to kind of act like we're living in our own version of casinos. Not to mention, we are all, I'm talking to you on a smartphone that is designed very similar in mind to slot machines or that kind of, excitatory piece to it. Not to mention the bright lights and Netflix and, laptops and all the things that we've got going on in our own little casinos at home, right? So one of the things that I would point to is if you are living indoors under electric lights, I would assert that most people, right?
I like that. If you're one of those rare people who lives indoors under lights, that's
right?
awesome.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a large swath of the population. So
Yes.
if you are one of those people, then we can, with a pretty good reasoning, assert that there's some form of circadian dysregulation at play. And I think that's what's the key missing for so many people, and in traditional kind of these basic suggestions for sleep, because often we're missing the fact that so many of us are dealing with this circadian dysregulation, not just from a pathological perspective of you're someone that's, your 24-hour rhythm is shifting, and so how we might think of it in textbook, but also from a perspective of just out of sync with the world around us. And that's key. That's what we're dealing with, because we know that out of in 2001, the EPA did a study and they found that the average person was spending around 93% of their time indoors, and that broke down to inside and in automobiles. So in these altered environments that then suddenly divorce us from these rhythms of nature. And the most important zeitgeber or time giver being light dark kind of transitioning. And because we're missing those important cues, then we are really at a disadvantage for the strength of our circadian rhythm right out of the gate. But that doesn't even account for all these other zeitgebers that are out of whack. So that goes into temperature, one of the next important ones. And we know that the average person indoors is likely having a bit more of a static temperature environment as opposed to outside. So, it's maybe 72 degrees most of the day and night, which is nothing like we would have been exposed to in days past. And so even the missing of that high amplitude of cold to warm days moving into cooler nights, that's a huge time giver to the body and helps synchronize those clocks. And then one of the next ones that I'll just mention, because it is such a popular one that so many people are thrown off around, is meal timing. And meal timing is a big one because every bite of food that we take in and ingest tells the body something about what time it is and helps to either synchronize or desynchronize those clocks that we were speaking about. And those clocks are in every cell and organ in our body and kept on time by our master clock, our suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's really especially influenced by that light dark, but all those other things that I mentioned, the temperature, the meal timing, and then it keeps going. It's fascinating. So then it keeps going with, how much you're moving your body or not moving your body will synchronize those clocks. Your thoughts are actually, we have evidence to suggest that our thoughts exist on a circadian rhythm, having very different types of thoughts, post midnight than by day, which is a whole other conversation. And chronopharmacology, the timing of our drugs. And so to bring us back to those poker players, if they're getting a lot of those signals at the wrong times, they're not synced up with the rising and the setting of the sun, they are often at a big disadvantage for the workability of their sleep. And as cognitive athletes, that's a big problem. Now, that can feel distinct or divorced from us, our day-to-day life. But I think we can all find ourselves in that analogy, because if we're looking to perform at our best in whatever capacity is important for us, it really behooves us to bring sleep into that equation. And reminder, sleep is something that we do a third of our lives, on average 26 years are spent asleep. for all of us go-getters that did like our New Year's resolutions and are planning to do that going on into the next new year, right? Remembering that 4 months out of that year are going to be spent asleep. So it makes a lot of sense to take a look at this thing that we're doing every
To,
night.
to optimize for it. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. I hadn't thought of, like, I hear temperature as it relates to sleep. The room must be cold, whether it's 65, 68. But I never thought of it in terms of, yeah, like normally I was just on a cruise and we were out at the beach and it got warmer in the day and then it got cooler at night. And like this is what is supposed to be doing timing. With food timing, do you see intermittent fasting kind of interfering, or do you really just get your timing? As long as you're being consistent, then you can get back in a rhythm, and that's good? Or what does that look like?
So good. Well, one, underscoring what you said about when you're on vacation and you get to notice when you're on a beach, and just the very clear difference that happens for every one of us when we're out on the beach and it's so warm and what have you. And then the sun goes down and suddenly that sand that was like burning you is now
Mm.
cold to the touch. And it's just so clear. That's the type of amplitude of the high difference that we're looking to kind of hit ourselves over the head with. And that can really, really be a helpful cue to prepare for sleep, because the preparation process of sleep is not just like a snap your fingers thing. It's not like taking an Ambien or something. It is something that's happening in the hours before sleep. So we want to make sure we're promoting that, and temperature is a big piece. And now meal timing, so fascinating. Now, intermittent fasting, of course, has gotten tons of press over the years, and I can also call myself out as someone that did it the exact opposite way of what I'm going to be discussing years ago before I had
Well,
tapped
you got to
into some
try
of these.
everything.
You certainly do. And actually, that was a part of some of the lead up for some of what I dealt with my period of insomnia. So just as a reminder, part of the reason I'm so obsessed with this is I went through my own period of insomnia and it totally changed my life. And I'm now grateful for it because it was a wake up call, no pun intended. But some of the things that had led to that was very stressful lifestyle living in Manhattan, burning the candle at both ends. And I was a huge proponent of intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast till much, much later, and not realizing what that was doing just to further amplify my cortisol, the effects and the changes in my hormones and a number of things. But I say all that because in the category of intermittent fasting, there's lots of ways that people can organize these. They'll talk about 16/8. We'll talk about on again, off again schedules, different caloric intake, all kinds of things. Circadian rhythm intermittent fasting is distinct and it has its own title. If you want support with this, there are different apps that you can look at. Zero is an app that actually has the option for circadian rhythm intermittent fasting. Dr. Sachin Panda has an app that you can check into, and he's one of the foremost experts on meal timing and circadian health out of the Salk Institute, decades of research there. Has a great book called The Circadian Code if anyone wants to look more into this, but does have an app as well. And lastly, the other app I'd mention is Circadian Life app. And that one allows you to really create an entire circadian aligned lifestyle. So I'd certainly recommend checking those out. But I say all that because there is a strategy to this, and you're looking for when are you having your first bite of food and your last bite of food. And that's kind of setting the window of when you're eating. And what we're looking to do at its most basic is largely front load this a bit more than most people are doing and have this align with the rhythms of nature, so that for the most part, this is super general, but that we're looking to eat a bulk of our calories when the sun is out, and then when the sun has set, we're having much less of our calories. And certainly for people that are using wearables, so like the Oura Ring, Loop Band, BioStrap, Apple, etc., you can often see the difference when you are eating your last bite of food in the hours before bed versus in the shorter term in the hours leading up to sleep. What you'll likely see is a change in your heart rate rising, your HRV dropping, your body temperature often going up, your respiratory rate often going up, and for many more wake ups throughout the course of the night. We see this all the time. We've got a very large database of Oura Ring users in particular. And so as a result, what we do see is just how much meal timing plays a big role. But to stabilize this kind of game around your blood sugar, what we want to help support is moving back that first bite of food to be more in alignment with the rhythms of nature. And so when the sun is out, that's when you're starting to bring about that food timing.
So probably it makes sense from a circadian rhythm perspective. Have that breakfast, have that be a bigger meal. If you're only going to eat two meals, then have that midday, kind of late afternoon or mid afternoon, and then that kind of can get you to both pieces.
Yes, exactly. So then that goes into, thank you for saying that, because you can look at volume. So meal volume can be a component, because in the practical application of this can be super challenging, because we're living in a society that's not really set up for this, where most of our meals, you go out about, and I know you and I will go to these conferences and stuff, and most of the meals, even with people that are in these conversations, we're not starting our meals until what, 7, 7:30, 8, whatever. And so how do you do this and be a part of society? So volume can
That's
be
a book. I think that's a book.
totally, exactly right. So what you can do is play with volume. There's an age-old saying that I always say is probably like a cancelable saying nowadays, which is, it used to be eating like a king for breakfast, I think prince or queen for lunch, and then pauper for dinner. And so all of it's looking to how can you titrate down on the amount that you're giving as homework, proverbial homework for the digestive system to have to deal with right before bed. And it makes a lot of sense too, presumably, if food provides energy, and if we are giving and if we're seeking out energy source, then you would think we would need that for the day ahead versus right before we're about to lay down. And then the distracting nature that is for the body, as opposed to focusing on things like lymphatic drainage, which has been getting a lot of press in recent years. So in the first half of the night, helping to support, the ability for us to get into those deep, rich periods of sleep. If we are dividing the resources of the body from the brain and from restorative natures that's occurring during deep sleep, and then we're sending all that blood flow to the stomach, etc., it's taking away reserves that we could be utilizing elsewhere. So that's just one of many reasons. But to your point, we're front loading it a bit more. Yes, if you can have a blood sugar stabilized, rich meal on the first half of the day, that's one of the first things we're looking to bring in. And especially if you are someone that drinks a lot of coffee, so that you're not just having coffee to further amp up your cortisol with nothing else first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. All of this, we talk a lot of this, maybe not all of this, we're giving extra away here, but we talked a lot of this in the podcast. There is a link to the podcast. You can find to Live Beyond the Norms on any of the podcast platforms. In the comments here, we've got a link directly to Mollie's episode, Sleep Like a Champion, Optimize Your Sleep to Boost Performance, Health, and Longevity. And then all the episodes in general. I know to connect with you, obviously, hopefully they're connected on Instagram. If they're from my audience, make sure you follow Mollie. But you've got a newsletter with a cool title. Talk a little bit about what you do with your newsletter.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So the newsletter is called Sleep Obsessions. And that has been running for almost 6 years, every Monday. I've never missed a Monday. And I really, really love that way of staying connected with people. So would love to have anyone listening join in on that. It is free every Monday that comes out. And so anything you send me, I will respond to. Sometimes it takes me a minute, but I will get back to everyone that does respond. It's been a really great way to stay in this conversation with lots of different people in different parts of their journey around their sleep.
And then you actually have a course that's coming up that people can sign up and see if, I don't know if there's a qualification process, but certainly a wait list is happening. Talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. So love those cohorts. Really enriching. So those are 8-week long cohorts. The next one is kicking off in the new year. So new year, new you. I mentioned the 4 months out of every year we are sleeping. So it can make a lot of sense to kick off this year in a whole new way to really learn the skill set of sleep that's uncommon in modern days. And so in order to participate in that, we do have you using, to get max value, to use the Oura Ring so that we can thread you through to our Oura Ring dashboard, and then we can be a part of your journey, see what's working for you, what's not working for you. And, you know, the things that we see on there are quite extensive. So we're seeing from the moment you wake up, from the moment you go to sleep, how much you're moving, stress load, you know, your HRV, your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your body temperature, all kinds of things. So we can really get a good sense of both your overall health from a consumer perspective, as well as some interesting information around your sleep. But then we also do make recommendations if we're seeing red flags for the need to potentially test for other sleep disorders or connect with others to take next steps. The amount of people that are walking around with undiagnosed sleep disorders is wild. There are over 100 sleep-wake disorders, and many people just have no idea. So it's important for us to dive into that. And if you do think that your doctor would have caught that, you know, it's unlikely, unfortunately, just because right now, just systemically, just from a problem in the system, even at a Harvard Med, the average doctor is getting around 2 hours of training in sleep, unfortunately. And I know they would love to, you know, to be more in that conversation. And yet, unfortunately, the way things are set up, we're not seeing that quite yet, although I do think the tides are turning. And we've got amazing people like yourself that are in these conversations and getting this information out. So really, really important time.
Yeah, and I think with your practitioner, it's kind of like their awareness of sleep, similar nutrition, and the potential challenge is that they're probably sleep deprived already. So
Right. Unfortunately, I know, especially in the United States, the way the medical system is set up is poor, you know, the people that we rely on. And that, you know, I mean, I was in a major car accident when I was 17, and I'm so grateful for all the people that were there and probably pulling how many, who knows how many hours they were pulling, and, you know, really saved my life. And so grateful for those people. And yet we're not really taking care of them in the sleep domain, unfortunately.
yeah, no, the conversations I've been having with physicians
Yeah.
about residency and how crazy residency is, like, I mean, you could write a book on that, and then all sorts of doctors would be upset because they had to go through that trial by fire, which is, you know, it just dumb.
Yes.
I think it's just dumb.
We know more. We know too much to let this keep going on, you know? So,
Yeah, slowly that will
yeah.
change. All right, well, you can find Mollie's episode, Sleep Like a Champion, Optimize Your Sleep to Boost Performance, Health, and Longevity with Mollie Eastman. There's a link in the comments directly to the YouTube channel, her actual episode, to the Live Beyond the Norms channel in general. And then Mollie has her sleep obsession newsletter. If you don't get the picture, she is obsessed with sleep, and you can stay connected with her on the newsletter. And then she's got her. I thought I pasted. Maybe I didn't paste that. Let me paste that one too.
Oh, yeah, you're
And
so
then
smart with all these links. It's perfect.
she's got her optimize your. Oh, I didn't do it, but okay. Optimize your sleep, transform your energy, habits, and health through biorhythm entrainment. And if any of those words are big, you should probably sign up. And so that link is there. That starts in January 2024. So Mollie, this is great. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add before we wrap up.
I just want to thank you for your commitment to getting this information out to the masses. It's just so admirable, so exciting, and your energy, and clearly just you're living your commitment to health and well-being. It's always clear to me, and you've just been nothing but such a wonderful presence every time I see you in real life and online. It's just a pleasure. So grateful.
Thank you so much, Mollie. Hopefully we'll see you at A4M. Hopefully,
Yeah.
like, you get enough sleep and can get there.
Hopefully. To be continued. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Thank you, Mollie.
All right,
Thank
thank
you
you
so much.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.